Hello and welcome to another time travel fiction Tuesday with me, the author Michael Campling, which I'll be reading from my book Trespass, one of the Darkening Stone books, first book in the trilogy. And I'm not going to be editing this video because that takes forever, but I am going to be trying to make a good job of the audio, so it's worth looking for the podcast version, and then you can listen to the audio where I'll be hopefully fixing any errors and stuff. I'm trying out some different software today, so we'll see how that all goes. So here we go. Trespass, a tale of time travel and ancient secrets, read by the author Michael Campling. Chapter... Oh, it's a false start. I'd moved ahead. Chapter 8, 3500 BC. Talon crouched, held both hands to his nose and tried to breathe slowly. The blood was stopping now, but the pain wasn't. Berlick stood over him, breathing hard, and for the third time he growled the same question. "Why did you follow me?" Talon took his hands away from his nose, looked up at Berlick. In the darkness he seemed larger, more threatening. Talon was beginning to wonder why he'd bothered. Surely Berlick could look after himself. But he knew the answer. "For my sister, for the village, and partly..." He paused to stand. "For your son." My son is..." Berlick closed his eyes and shook his head. His mind whirled with memories, with pictures that he did not want to see. "My son is gone." He hung his head. Talon tried again. "No, Berlick, your son is waiting for you back at the village. He needs his father, and your wife, Skimrian, she needs her husband." Skimrian, she was so... The memories were flooding in now. Skimrian before the baby. She had been so strong, so sleek and perfect while she carried their child within her. And she had been so happy. She'd been so sure that this child would be a fine son. And in the evenings, when she'd been too tired to work, she'd sat by the fire with Berlick and sung for him. Talon reached out and placed his hand on Berlick's shoulder. He tried to speak gently. "Berlick, I know that you blame Wiccan for what has happened. The whole village knows that you do. But I don't know why. How could he do this?" Berlick bristled at the mention of Wiccan's name. With one hand he brushed Talon's hand from his shoulder, and with the other he pushed Talon hard in the chest. His voice was a cold fury. "I'll tell you how. I went to see him. I needed stone for the new hut for Skimrian and the baby. I told him how a time was near, how the stream was low, how my Skimrian struggled to carry the water. And he gave me water, a whole skin of it, for Skimrian, and I gave it to her. I trusted him." Talon said, "But I don't understand." Berlick did not let him finish. "He put a curse on the water. He must have done. As soon as Skimrian drank it, the baby came. And it was too soon, much too soon." Berlick grimaced at the memory. Skimrian had been right, the baby was a boy. True, he was small, but as fine as any baby he had ever seen. But for Skimrian, something was wrong. "And you know what happened." I know," Talon said. "I know that she would not hold him." "You know nothing. She would not hold him, would not feed him, would not sing to him. She would not eat or drink. She would not speak except to say she had no child." Talon drew a deep breath. He knew what the women folk said, that Skimrian had let her soul drift so far into the shade world that it could not find its way back to her. And he understood how helpless Berlick must feel. A man could not provide the warmth, nourishment and comfort that only a mother can give, but he also knew that they were all wrong. His sister and her baby needed help. Even now his own wife, Selepone, was caring for the child and trying to do what she could for Skimrian. He had to make Berlick see sense. He kept his voice steady. Berlick, if you harm Wiccan, the villagers will turn against you. They need him. Some of the elders revere him. You will be banished, and then what will become of Skimrian? He paused, tried to see Berlick's eyes in the darkness, tried to judge if he was getting through to him. But he didn't see the punch coming. He only felt the pain in his gut, felt the air burst from his chest. He doubled over, rested his hands on his knees, and gasped. Berlick turned and walked away. By the time Talon had regained his breath, Berlick was gone. Talon looked back toward the village, to where his wife and a safe place to sleep waited for him. Then he sighed, shook his head, and turned to follow Berlick. He walked slowly and quietly, watching the shadows. He did not seriously think that Berlick would lie in wait for him. As far as Berlick was concerned, he had beaten Talon, and that was the end of the matter. But it was wise to be cautious, and in any case, there was no need to hurry. He knew exactly where Berlick was going. Chapter 9, 3500 BC. As he worked, Wiccan blinked to try and clear the rain from his eyes. It was raining so hard that he'd stopped feeling wet long ago. Still, he thought, there is one good thing about the heavy rain. It had kept the intruder away. He'd seen no sign of him all day. He's probably had enough of his silly game, Wiccan thought. He's probably gone for good. Wiccan nodded. Now he'd have the peace he needed to concentrate on his work. He smiled. He was actually looking forward to the rest of the day. He'd have a fire later. He had a small pile of wood keeping dry in his hut. It will be good to be warm, he said to himself. I must remember to gather some more wood and set it to dry. For now, though, the stone must come first. As he walked to the rock face he was to work on that day, he thought of happier times, remembering what it was like before his father had crossed over into the shade world. He'd been happy. In those days, the village had been much larger. There were many families nearby who were... Do that bit again. He'd been happy. In those days, the village had been much larger. There were many families nearby who were glad of the stone for their huts and happy to offer food in return. As a boy, Wiccan looked forward to their visits and enjoyed helping the men load up their stone blocks. Wiccan shook his head. Even then, he said to himself, even then I knew this place was special. Let's read that bit again. Even then, he said to himself, even then I knew this place was special. He chuckled at the memory of the nervous villagers, the way their eyes darted uneasily around the shadows, the looks they gave one another when his father's back was turned. Ha, he said. They couldn't wait to load up their stone and leave, especially if it was getting dark. At least, he thought, they had always given plenty of food in exchange. Now there were fewer villagers, they came much less often, and if there was one thing he missed, it was the gifts of food they had brought. Still, he got by. He survived, and now he must put his daydreams to one side. He had work to do. The rain may have turned the soil to mud, but it had washed the rock clean. Slowly, as his father had taught him, his eyes and fingers explored the texture and the fine lines of the stone. What do you think, father? He said. Which cracks are shallow, just the scratches of the rain and the wind, and which are the deeper wounds? He heard Cleofan's voice as clearly as if he was still alive and standing beside him. Patience, Wiccan, remember all that I have taught you. We want only the wounds that run deep into the heart of the stone. These are the stone's one weakness. Wiccan nodded and concentrated on the stone's surface. He knew all about patience. Even with a lifetime's accumulation of skill, his work took a great deal of time. A simple mistake could undo a month's work. He knew how to take his time. He focused his mind. No man could see the deep veins and twisted sinews within the stone, but Wiccan had learned to picture them in his mind. Shuffling slowly along the muddy path, Wiccan studied the line of stout yew stakes he'd hammered into a fissure in the stone. Methodically, almost automatically, he began checking that all was as it should be. "Are the stakes fixed firmly, Wiccan?" "Yes, father." He gripped the rain-slippery bark of each one and tested it was secure. Satisfied, he said, "The rain will do its job." The wood was slowly swelling and opening the fissure. "It will be some time yet, but it will make a good block, one of the biggest I've ever made." He could picture the huge block. He could picture the huge block, and looking farther into the future, he could imagine the smaller building blocks he would split from it. He smiled to himself with the satisfaction of the craftsman who knows his skills cannot be bettered. Clearfan, though, was never entirely satisfied. "It is a pity, though," he said. Wiccan sighed wearily. "Yes, father?" "I passed my skills on to you. You have no one." "Yes, father, I know. There is much that I could teach." It was a conversation that they'd repeated often, but that didn't prevent Clearfan from going through it again. "If only," Clearfan said, "if only you'd had a son." "Yes, father." "He'd be here now, watching and learning. But instead, here you are talking to an old man's shade." "Yes, father, it seems that I am destined to live alone. And," he thought to himself, "destined to die alone." "But that is no good," Clearfan insisted. "Our skills and secrets must not be allowed to die." Wiccan thought for a moment. This was a departure from their usual discussion. "But, father," he said, "how can that be? Cannot pass our sacred knowledge on to just any person." "Of course not," his father replied. "You will need a true apprentice, someone who will dedicate their life to the stone, someone who will devote themselves to learning your skills as you have devoted yourself to learning mine." "And where will I get this apprentice from, father?" Wickham was finding it hard to hide his frustration. "The villagers fear this place, and anyway, they cannot spare any of the men. There are so few of them now. So many died of the sickness." Immediately, Wickham regretted his outburst. He listened, waited. "Are you there, father?" He should have kept his temper, and he shouldn't have mentioned the sickness. After all, it was the same sickness that had taken both his parents. There was no answer. Clearfan's restless shade had gone. Wiccan fretted. He rubbed his eyes and looked up toward the place where his father... Oh, dear. He rubbed his eyes and looked up toward the place where his father and mother were buried. Their bodies, at least, were at rest. The place where they lay was marked by a small mound of stones on a ledge high above the pit floor. It was fitting that his father's shade should be released close to his most profound discovery, his greatest work, and his darkest secret. Stop there, having done a couple of chapters, so I hope you enjoyed that. Or if you were watching, I hope you enjoyed watching. And I'm hopefully going to be able to edit out the mistakes and the pauses and things. And if you want to read along, so you can look for Trespass by Michael Campling. Get the ebook on Amazon or from your local library, and the paperback you can also look out for. There are 3 books, and there's also a prequel called Breaking Ground, but that's a not-for-sale prequel. It's a novella of events that take part before this book. Delves back into the even further past to see what was going on there, and you can look for that. Sorry, you can only get that by signing up for my newsletter, which is michaelcampling.com/free books, and that's the way to get that at the moment. And I hope you feel like doing that, and you also get like a good newsletter which comes out sort of once or twice a month, And there's loads of other content, including all the readings, all the different podcasts that are for each week at authormichaelcampling.substack.com. Okay, I'll sign off. Happy reading. Take care of yourselves and bye.